The story begins with Hasley Weigel, who is about to experience her very first day at a new school. As she rushes to get there, she receives a heartfelt voice message from her mother, congratulating her on the new beginning. Her mom also tells her that she's currently at the hospital because of work and wishes her the best for the day. On her way, Hasley accidentally bumps into a mysterious student named Luke. She asks him where the second-year classroom is. Luke casually points her in the wrong direction, and by the time Hasley realizes she's been tricked, she's already late. When she finally reaches the correct classroom, the strict professor refuses to let her in and sends her back outside without listening to any explanation. Waiting outside, she runs into Luke again. Annoyed by his prank, she confronts him, but Luke simply asks for her name. After introducing herself, Hasley expects him to do the same, but instead he quietly walks away without revealing who he is. A little later, one of Hasley's classmates, Olivia, apologizes on behalf of the professor and warmly welcomes her to the group. She introduces Hasley to the rest of their friends, including Matt, who greets her with a friendly hug. Hasley asks everyone about Luke. Their expressions immediately change. They explain that Luke wasn't always like this. Ever since his brother passed away, he has become distant, unpredictable, and emotionally broken. They even warn Hasley to stay away from him. During the conversation, she tells her new friends that her mother is a psychiatrist who works both at the hospital and at the school. The following day, Hasley is late once again. Instead of walking into class, she quietly sits alone on the school grounds. Moments later, Luke appears beside her and jokingly asks why she's skipping class. This time, Hasley surprises him by calling him by his full name. Luke smiles in disbelief and asks, "So, you found out who I am?" Their conversation takes an unexpected turn when Luke notices Hasley's notebook. He picks it up and discovers a list filled with dreams and goals she hopes to achieve someday. Curious, he asks if it's some kind of bucket list. Hasley gently explains that these aren't just random wishes. They're the dreams that keep her moving forward and give her hope, even when life feels difficult. Luke admits that, in his eyes, dreams only end up being shattered, which is why he stopped believing in them long ago. But Hasley sees things differently. She believes dreams give people a reason to keep living, no matter how hard life becomes. For the first time, Luke opens up about the things he secretly wishes to do one day: swimming with dolphins, jumping off a cliff into the ocean, driving without any destination, and visiting Amsterdam. Hasley notices the logo on Luke's t-shirt and asks about it. Shocked, Luke can't believe she doesn't recognize Pink Floyd. Before leaving, Luke casually offers her a cigarette, claiming that breaking the rules once in a while can make life feel lighter. Hasley immediately refuses, making it clear that smoking isn't something she'll ever try. And without realizing it, this unusual encounter marks the beginning of a connection that is about to change both of their lives forever. After school, Matt asks Hasley if she'd like to hang out with him. She agrees, and the two spend a pleasant evening together at a restaurant. By the end of the night, Matt walks her home, and before saying goodbye, they share their very first kiss. Hasley attends Claire's party with Matt. The atmosphere is lively, and she enjoys spending time with her new friends. There, she meets Olivia once again. When the DJ suddenly runs into technical problems, Olivia steps in to help. That's when they meet Andre, the DJ's friend, who also happens to be a student at their school. As the party continues, Hasley notices an awkward tension between Claire and Matt. A little later, someone accidentally spills a drink on Hasley's shirt. Matt takes her to the restroom so she can clean up. The two grow closer and share another kiss. But just then, Luke unexpectedly walks in. Matt quickly leaves after one of his friends calls him away. Luke quietly offers her his own shirt so she can change into something dry. Looking around at the crowded party, he tells Hasley he's leaving for a place he truly loves. Curious, Hasley asks where he's going. Luke simply smiles and says it's somewhere he thinks she'll love too. With everyone else distracted by the party, Hasley decides to take a chance. She follows Luke outside. He hands her a helmet, and together they ride away into the night. After a short ride, Luke asks her to close her eyes. When she finally opens them, she finds herself standing in a hidden place unlike anything she's ever seen before. With a smile, Luke says, "Welcome to the Boulevard of Broken Dreams." The place is filled with old memories, abandoned treasures, and countless vinyl records. Luke explains that he discovered this secret hideout years ago with his late brother Zach. After Zach passed away, their father wanted to throw all of his belongings away, but Luke couldn't let that happen. Instead, he secretly brought everything here to preserve the memories they had shared. As Hasley looks around, she notices the huge collection of vinyl records and asks if they all belong to him. Luke smiles and tells her that many of them were his, while others had been sent from London by his older brother Paul. Curious, Hasley asks how many records are in the collection. Luke casually replies that there are around 500. Never satisfied with an approximate answer, Hasley playfully asks, "Is it less than 500 or more?" Luke laughs and asks if the exact number really matters. With complete confidence, Hasley answers, "It matters to me." She insists that one day he'll have to count every single one. As they continue exploring the hideout, Hasley asks about its unusual name. Luke explains that Boulevard of Broken Dreams is the title of one of his favorite songs. To him, this place represents every dream that was left unfinished, every hope that was lost along the way. Then Hasley shares a deeply personal story. She reveals that she started writing down her dreams when she was just a little girl, shortly after her father left their family. He walked away when she was only 2 years old, leaving behind nothing but his surname and a habit of dreaming about things that often seemed impossible. Luke listens carefully. For the first time in a long while, someone has reminded him what hope feels like. Inspired by Hasley's optimism, he decides to create a wish list of his own, but instead of asking her to help him write it, he asks her to help him complete it. Hasley smiles and happily agrees. The first wish Luke writes on the wall is simple, yet meaningful: drive with no destination. The two celebrate the moment by dancing together, laughing like they've forgotten every problem in the world. Just then, Matt calls Hasley. The cheerful atmosphere instantly changes. Without saying a word, he drives her home. And for the first time, Luke begins to understand that falling in love might hurt even more than living with his past. A few days later, the group decides to watch a movie at the theater owned by Luke's father. Hasley, Matt, Olivia, and the others arrive together, but Luke is clearly uncomfortable seeing Hasley with Matt. He coldly tells them that the show is already sold out, even though the real reason is far more personal. Unable to deal with his emotions, Luke leaves the theater and heads straight to a club. There, he meets Andre, and the two begin drinking and using drugs together. Luke's cousin refuses to take Jew to work. The next day at school, Luke completely ignores Hasley. Meanwhile, Matt asks Hasley to spend the evening with him, and she agrees. She accidentally forgets her notebook behind. That evening, Hasley waits for Matt, but he never shows up. Instead, Luke arrives carrying the notebook she had left behind. Trying to break the awkward silence, he finally tells her something she had been waiting to hear. He counted every single vinyl record. There were exactly 503. The mood between them softens, and she asks if he'd like to go somewhere. As they walk together, Hasley tells Luke about a tradition she once learned. In China, the number 520 is often used to express the words "I love you." She laughs and says that one day she wants to buy herself 520 roses, simply as a reminder that loving yourself is just as important as loving someone else. Hasley asks why he keeps smoking despite knowing how harmful it is. Luke quietly replies that for him, cigarettes are nothing more than an escape, a temporary way to silence the chaos inside his mind. Curious, Hasley asks if she should try one too. Luke immediately refuses. He may not care much about himself, but he refuses to let her make the same mistakes. Instead, he playfully blows a cloud of smoke into the air, making Hasley cough almost instantly. Laughing, Luke tells her that she's finally ready for the next adventure. He takes her to a small vinyl record store. The owner is about to close, but after recognizing Luke, he smiles and says he has some work to do nearby. He leaves the shop in their care for a while. As soft music begins playing from an old record player, the atmosphere becomes peaceful. They listen to song after song, sharing smiles, stories, and comfortable silence. Looking at Hasley, he realizes there may never be a more perfect moment than this. If he lets this chance slip away, he might regret it forever. Without another word, he gently kisses her. For a brief moment, every fear, every painful memory, and every unfinished dream disappears. There are only two people, and the beginning of a love neither of them ever expected.
That night, both of them return home with smiles they can't hide. For the first time in a long while, Luke feels genuinely happy. He immediately calls his older brother Paul and excitedly tells him that things are finally changing. He admits that meeting Hasley has brought light back into his life and made him believe that happiness might still be possible. At the same time, Hasley opens up to Olivia and Nathan. She confesses that she's completely confused about her feelings. She knows Matt is kind and has always treated her well, but ever since she met Luke, her heart hasn't been the same. Olivia smiles and reminds Hasley that Matt is actually the lucky one for having someone like her. Nathan, however, gives her a more serious piece of advice. He explains that Luke wasn't always the troubled person everyone sees today. Before his brother's tragic accident, he was cheerful, caring, and one of their closest friends. But after that loss, everything changed. He became emotionally distant, started using drugs, and slowly pushed everyone away. Still, he warns her to think carefully before making any decision because loving someone who's broken is never easy. The following day, Luke sees Hasley spending time with Matt once again. The sight immediately crushes him. When Hasley tries to explain herself, Luke keeps his distance. She tells him that she's planning to end her relationship with Matt, but she needs a little time. Although Luke doesn't say much, it's clear that he's afraid of getting hurt again. Later that evening, Luke asks his father if he can stay at the family theater after the final show. He wants to prepare a surprise for Hasley. Instead of supporting him, his father harshly refuses. He accuses Luke of ruining everyone's lives, reminding him that his mother still cries because of everything that's happened. He even suggests that Hasley deserves someone better. The painful words hit Luke harder than anyone realizes. Heartbroken and furious, he leaves without saying another word. Hoping to see Hasley, Luke goes looking for her. But when he arrives, he finds Matt kissing her. From a distance, Luke silently watches the moment unfold. The disappointment is too much for him to handle. Trying to escape his emotions, Luke returns to the club. Once again, he loses himself in alcohol, drugs, and another violent fight. The next day, Hasley notices that Luke has disappeared. She visits her mother's office, only to catch a brief glimpse of him leaving before she can say anything. Determined not to lose him, Hasley finally tracks him down and apologizes. Luke tells her to stay away from him. He believes that everyone close to him eventually gets hurt, and he refuses to let Hasley become another victim of his broken life. But this time, Hasley refuses to walk away. She tells Luke that he doesn't get to decide what's best for her. Yes, she's scared. Yes, she knows life with him won't be easy. But despite everything, she doesn't want to lose him. Luke admits that seeing her with Matt broke his heart. Hasley gently replies that she no longer cares about what other people think or what they may have seen. All she knows is that she wants to be with him. Then she says something that leaves Luke speechless. "If you truly want me to leave, then you'll have to be the one to push me away." Luke looks at her, but he can't do it. His silence says everything. Hasley smiles softly. "I knew you couldn't." She notices Luke's wish list and begins reading it. Some dreams are adventurous, jumping from a cliff into the ocean, visiting Amsterdam, singing loudly without worrying about anyone's opinion. Others are much simpler. Each one reveals a small piece of the person Luke used to be. Overwhelmed with emotion, Luke thanks Hasley for not giving up on him. From that day forward, the two begin chasing their dreams together, crossing one wish after another off their list. To replace the dream of swimming with dolphins, a wish she can't fulfill, Hasley gives Luke a beautiful necklace as a gift. It isn't about the price. It's a reminder that someone finally believes in him again. As they spend more time together, Hasley notices one of Luke's tattoos and asks what it means. Luke explains that to him, life is like a game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it's unbelievably difficult, and sometimes it's surprisingly simple. Hasley smiles and shares her own perspective. She says life feels more like a story. Every choice becomes a new chapter, every mistake becomes another page, and no matter how messy the journey gets, you can't stop reading because you'll always want to know what happens next. For the first time in years, Luke begins looking forward to the next chapter of his own story. Not long after, Hasley decides it's finally time to be honest with Matt. She tells him that their relationship is over. Matt refuses to accept it. Instead of letting her go, he insists that they simply need some space and believes everything will eventually go back to normal. But Hasley has already made up her mind. Her heart belongs to someone else. A few days later, Hasley and Olivia head to a nightclub with Luke and Andre. For the first time in a while, Luke seems genuinely carefree. The four friends spend the evening laughing, dancing, and forgetting about their problems. Unnoticed by them, someone secretly takes pictures of Luke and Hasley together. Those photos would soon change everything. Later that night, everyone leaves the club. Luke and Hasley start walking in different directions, assuming the night is over. Then, out of nowhere, Luke pulls up in an old minibus. Surprised, Hasley laughs and asks where he found it. With a grin, Luke tells her he's simply checking another dream off his wish list. It was the promise he had written on the wall. Drive with no destination. So, where are we going? Hasley asks. Luke smiles. Nowhere. After a brief pause, Hasley replies, Then let's go nowhere. Together. The two climb onto the roof of the moving bus, enjoying the cool night air as the city lights pass beneath them. For Luke, it feels like freedom. For Hasley, it feels like home. As they sit side by side beneath the stars, Luke finally opens his heart completely. He tells Hasley that ever since she entered his life, he hasn't felt alone anymore. Whenever he looks at her, he starts believing that maybe he can become a better person. But he also admits the painful truth. He's still relying on the very addictions that are destroying him from the inside. Then, for the first time, Luke tells her what really happened to his brother. He reveals how the tragic accident changed his life forever and how the guilt has haunted him every single day since. Hasley gently takes his hand. She tells him that it wasn't his fault. It was a terrible accident, nothing more. She reminds him that blaming himself won't bring his brother back. Then she quietly asks, What would my life have been if I had never met you? Luke looks at her with tears in his eyes. He says that whenever life becomes unbearable and he feels like giving up, Hasley somehow appears and reminds him that there's still something worth fighting for. You never let me fall apart, he says. You gave meaning to this boulevard again. Then he smiles. You are my little boulevard, full of hope. Finally, Luke tells her the words he's been holding back for so long. I love you. Hasley smiles through her tears. I love you too. For a brief moment, it feels as though nothing in the world can separate them. Luke promises that no matter what happens, he'll always stand by her side. The next morning, however, reality comes crashing down. As Hasley walks into school, she notices everyone staring at her. Confused, she has no idea what's going on. Olivia and Nathan rush over trying to comfort her. They tell her not to worry about the photos. What photos? Hasley asks. Before anyone can answer, Matt appears. Angrily, he shows her the pictures that were secretly taken outside the nightclub. The images clearly show Hasley spending the night with Luke. Feeling betrayed, Matt accuses her of cheating. Hasley calmly reminds him that she had already ended their relationship. Just as the argument begins to escalate, Luke arrives and tries to take Hasley away. But Matt isn't finished. He cruelly insults Luke, calling him a drug addict. Then he crosses a line that should never have been crossed. He mocks Luke's brother's death. The words instantly ignite Luke's anger. The two begin fighting. Hasley desperately tries to stop them, but in the middle of the chaos, she's accidentally struck and starts bleeding. Everything suddenly goes silent. Seeing Hasley hurt shocks everyone. Her mother immediately rushes over, sends Luke away, and takes care of her daughter. Later, she shares some unexpected news. Her position at the hospital has finally become permanent. That means they no longer have to move from place to place. For the first time in years, they finally have a place they can truly call home. But while Hasley is beginning a new chapter, Luke suddenly disappears. Days pass, but Luke is nowhere to be found. Hasley tries to move on, yet she can't stop thinking about him. Meanwhile, Clara approaches Hasley and attempts to start a conversation, but before anything meaningful can happen, Hasley leaves. That evening, as she returns home, she finds Luke standing alone in the pouring rain. Soaked from head to toe, he refuses to come inside. Instead, he bitterly asks if she's embarrassed to be seen with someone like him. "Aren't you ashamed of loving a drug addict?" Hasley is stunned. She tells him that she never pitied him. She stayed because she truly believed he could change. Luke, however, is consumed by self-hatred. He asks if he ever begged for her help. To him, everyone who gets close eventually ends up disappointed. Unable to face his emotions, Luke leaves and heads back to the Boulevard. Sitting alone among the memories he once treasured, he drinks heavily and lights another cigarette. Lost in his thoughts, he doesn't even notice the danger around him. Suddenly, a fire breaks out. The flames spread rapidly, trapping Luke inside. Before the situation becomes fatal, someone arrives just in time and drags him out of the burning hideout, saving both his life and the precious belongings that remained from Zach. The next day, Nathan visits Hasley. He tells her not to let other people's opinions decide her future. According to Nathan, Luke isn't evil. Life simply broke him. He encourages Hasley to speak to Luke one last time before making a final decision. But Hasley is still deeply hurt and refuses. Just then, Matt arrives and sarcastically mocks both Luke and Hasley. Moments later, news of the fire reaches them, leaving Hasley shocked and worried. Meanwhile, Luke regains consciousness. Standing beside him is his older brother, Paul. Paul reveals that he happened to arrive at the Boulevard just in time to save him from the fire. Looking at Luke with concern, he says, "It's time to leave everything behind." He wants Luke to come with him to London and begin rehabilitation. At first, Luke refuses. But then something unexpected happens. Luke's father finally opens his heart. He apologizes for the cruel things he said before. With tears in his eyes, he admits that he has never blamed Luke for Zach's death. In fact, he confesses that there were days when he wished he had been the one to die instead. For the first time in years, father and son begin to heal the pain they had both been carrying in silence. Realizing he can no longer keep running from his past, Luke finally agrees to go to London for treatment. Before leaving, he meets Hasley one last time. He apologizes for everything he has put her through. Hasley, relieved to see him alive, tells him that they don't have to run away anymore. Her mother's permanent job means they'll finally stay in one place. She believes they can build a future together. Luke gently explains that he's leaving for London, not to leave her behind, but to become someone worthy of the future they both deserve. Hasley promises that she'll wait for him. Luke smiles sadly and tells her not to put her life on hold. If someone wonderful comes into her life, she should never be afraid to move forward. Seeing the pain in her eyes, he quickly clarifies that all he truly wants is for her to be happy. Trying to lighten the emotional moment, Hasley jokingly starts to respond. Before she can finish, Luke interrupts with the words he says to her more than anything else. "Quiet, Weigel." Hasley bursts into laughter. Luke looks at her in confusion. She smiles and says, "You've probably said 'quiet, Weigel' more times than 'I love you.'" Luke laughs. "Maybe that's my version of saying 'I love you.'" Before leaving town, Luke says goodbye to his friends. Andre happily shares that he and Olivia are finally together. Luke smiles, congratulates them, and asks them to look after Hasley while he's gone. Although he's preparing to leave, his heart is still with the girl who taught him how to dream again. The night of the farewell party finally arrives. Hasley tries to enjoy the evening, but without Luke by her side, everything feels incomplete. Across town, Luke is packing his bags for London. Just before they leave for the airport, Paul hands him a special gift, a vinyl record. Luke smiles as he looks at it and quietly says, "That makes 520. The number instantly reminds him of Hasley, the girl who once told him that 520 means "I love you." At that moment, Luke realizes he can't leave without seeing her one last time. He asks Paul to head to the airport first, promising he'll be there soon. Then, carrying the vinyl record, he rushes to the party, determined to tell Hasley how much she truly means to him. Meanwhile, Hasley feels completely out of place. Everyone around her is laughing, dancing, and celebrating, while she can't stop thinking about Luke. Sensing her sadness, Olivia changes the music to lift the mood. Slowly, Hasley begins to dance. One by one, Andre, Olivia, Clara, and Nathan join her, turning the lonely moment into one filled with friendship and support. But the happiness doesn't last long. Matt and his friends confront Nathan, accusing him of betraying them by standing with Hasley. The argument quickly escalates. forcing everyone outside the venue. What begins as a heated exchange soon turns into a violent fight. In the middle of the chaos, Clara finally reveals the truth. She admits that Matt had been deceiving Hasley from the very beginning. She also confesses that she was the one who secretly took the photos of Luke and Hasley at the nightclub, knowing they would create misunderstandings between them. Hasley is left speechless. Everything she believed about Matt falls apart in an instant. Just then, Luke arrives. Without thinking about his own safety, he rushes straight into the fight to protect Hasley. In the struggle, Luke is fatally injured while shielding her. The boy who had spent so much of his life believing he was beyond saving gives his life protecting the person he loved most. Everything falls silent. Hasley's world shatters before her eyes. Some time later, unable to let go of the memories they created together, Hasley returns to the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. The place that once echoed with laughter now feels painfully empty. As she walks through the familiar hideout, she discovers a letter Luke had left behind for her. With trembling hands, she opens it. In the letter, Luke tells Hasley that saying her surname, Weigel, was always one of his favorite things. He writes that if she's reading the letter, he hopes he's already in London, trying to become a better version of himself. He explains that meeting her changed everything. Before she entered his life, he believed the world had already defeated him. But she gave him hope, taught him how to dream again, and reminded him that life was still worth fighting for. Luke recalls the day they first met outside the school gate. He remembers the first time they kissed and admits that it was one of the happiest moments of his life. He thanks Hasley for catching him when he was falling apart and for believing in him when he couldn't believe in himself. He promises that his love for her will never fade, no matter how much time passes. He even jokes that if she ever called him while crying, he'd catch the very first flight just to hold her. Before ending the letter, Luke asks her to take care of herself and to keep looking after the Boulevard until they meet again. Finally, he signs the letter with a smile, reminding her about the little toothpaste stain that had secretly been her adorable way of flirting. His final words are simple: always yours, Luke. The story ends on a bittersweet note. In the final scene, Hasley sits alone at the Boulevard, listening to music as memories of Luke fill her heart. Life moves forward. She is accepted into the university she had always dreamed of attending. Her mother, Olivia, Andre, and everyone who loves her celebrates this new beginning. Although Luke is gone, the hope he rediscovered through Hasley continues to live on. Sometimes people don't stay in our lives forever, but the love they leave behind becomes the reason we keep moving forward. And that's exactly what Luke became. Not just Hasley's first love, but the dream that changed her life forever.
Hey guys, how was the explanation? If you truly enjoyed, then please subscribe and press the bell icon for more such videos.